Hello everyone and welcome to this module on the mechanical motor vehicle. In today's video, let us learn to check and top up the power steering fluid and conduct pressure testing and flushing of the power steering system. By the end of this video, you will be able to check the power steering fluid level and its condition, top up the fluid level in the power steering system, conduct the power steering fluid pressure test, perform fluid flushing of the power steering system, and fill and bleed the power steering fluid system. Let us collect the tools, equipment and materials required to do this. Trainees Toolkit 1, Vehicle with Power Steering 1, Pressure Gauge 1, Power Steering Hose as required, Hydraulic Oil as required, Cotton Waste as required, Soap oil as required, 5W oil as required. Checking the steering fluid level. Make sure that the engine is turned off and cool enough to touch. Locate the power steering reservoir and bleed valve. Remove the cap and observe the fluid level. Most power steering reservoirs are made of clear plastic and the cap does not have to be removed to observe the fluid level. There may be markings or lines on the dipstick attached to the cap, indicating the minimum and maximum levels. Check the fluid condition and, if needed, replace the fluid. If the fluid level is very low, find the cause for the loss of fluid in the power steering system. If the fluid level is below the minimum mark, you may need to add more power steering fluid. Slowly, add small amounts of the fluid at a time, checking the level frequently to avoid overfilling. If any part is damaged or worn out, replace the defective part. If needed, bleed the power steering system by operating the steering wheel lock to lock. Ensure proper action of the power steering system. Pressure testing. Check the power steering fluid level. Check the power steering pump drive belt and adjust if necessary. Start the engine and listen for noises from the power steering system. Attach a power steering gauge to the pump. Fill and bleed the power steering system. Start the engine and observe the pressure gauge reading at the high temperature line, pump, control valve and relief valve. When the engine is running, turn the steering to the left and right and observe the pressure gauge reading. When the engine is running, close the pressure gauge valve and observe the pressure reading. The flush system. Place a pan under the power steering reservoir. Remove the return hose fitting at the reservoir and allow the fluid to flow from the reservoir and the return hose into the pan. Plug the return port and fill the fluid into the reservoir. Start the engine and allow the fluid to drain from the return hose into the pan. Add clear fluid to the reservoir as the old fluid drains. Start the engine and allow the fluid to flow from the return hose into the pan. Filling and bleeding. Make sure that the engine is turned off and cooled down. Remove the power steering reservoir cap and check the fluid level. Add fluid as needed to fill it up. Replace the cap. Locate the power steering bleed valve on the steering box. Trace the power steering lines from the steering box to the power steering pump and other components. If there is a bleed valve, it may be located along these lines. Look for any markings or labels on the steering box itself that indicate the presence of a bleed valve. If steering the car causes some noise and makes the steering more difficult, it could be due to an air pocket that is trapped in the power steering pump. Open the bleed valve and turn the steering wheel several times lock to close one bleed valve. Ensure that there is no air in the power steering fluid line. Check the power steering fluid level before driving. In this video, we have discussed how to check the power steering fluid level and its condition, top up the fluid level in the power steering system, perform the power steering fluid pressure test, fluid flush as a power steering system, fill and bleed the power steering fluid system. Hope you have a clear understanding of this session. Thank you all and see you in the next video.